Welcome to another episode, everyone. A blood hit the yard that was a Mexican, a Hispanic, in Lancaster in 1996. And the yard exploded into a bloody melee between the Southsiders and the blacks. And it was indeed bloody and explosive. Well, it happened rather quickly. Now, at the time on this yard, there was a gate on the yard separating the buildings. It was a level 4 yard. However, buildings 1, 2, and 3 were separated by a gate on the yard from buildings 4 and 5. Buildings 4 and 5 is on one side of the yard programming, and the other buildings are on the other side of the gate, thus the other side of the yard programming. And everyone is getting along just fine. There have been a few spats by this juncture between the blacks and the Southsiders, because really Lancaster is what you would call a black man's prison. High Desert is what you would call a white man's prison. All of the COs are white. The sergeants, lieutenants, captains, the warden, white. In Lancaster, it's just the opposite. All of the COs are black. The sergeants, lieutenant, warden, assistant warden, the person who runs the laundry, the people who work in the kitchen, the people who work in the canteen, all of the so-called free staff, they're all essentially black. There are a couple, of course, other races there that are COs, a couple, but for the most part, dominantly, they are black. So naturally, the blacks there are getting a little bit more favor than others. For the most part, black people are not racist. Black COs are not racist. So they're not going to go overboard and be supplying blacks with knives and things of that nature, for the most part. But you have some individual COs who are showing some blacks some more love. So as a result of this, there's been a couple of little spats with the Southsiders because, they won't end on some of the things that's going on, etc. However, at this particular time, when this situation transpired, everything is kosher on the yard. Everything is peaceful and going along just fine, other than the regular politics that beset a level 4 prison yard. There is violence on the yard. People are being removed from the yard. People are being unalived on the yard. But it's really all in-house. It's your own people transgressing against a rule or a protocol, and then you handle that individual. There's nothing between the races. There's no violence between the races or the inmates versus the police, etc. It's really just people cleaning up their own backyard. The police oftentimes are okay with this, because they understand that if you do not clean up your own backyard, it could lead to bigger problems, more intense violence between the faction sections, races, gangs, etc. if someone does something in your faction and you do not address it immediately. So, everything is okay on the yard and everything is kosher. We are getting along just fine with the Southsiders at this juncture. They're getting in and have been in on some of the things that's going on with the blacks on the yard as far as making money. I'm not going to dive too much in this video into some of the things that was going on. I'll get into it at a later date. But a lot was going on in the prison at this time. They were in on it, so they were cool. And there were some strong individuals there from different hoods that were black. Some very strong individuals. However, the blacks at this time, as always really, were just not structured and were not organized. Strong individuals, and you had strong cars even, strong factions. 3 and 4 and 5 people out of this car are guerrillas, strong individuals, wielding knives, and will take care of business, pushing black power, pushing their gang, what have you. But they're not organized. The blacks on the yard are not connected. They're strong individually, and again, certain factions are strong, but as a collective, a community, not strong, not structured, not organized. Hispanic hits the yard, a Mexican. And he was a blood, I believe he was from Peru. He was from Compton. And he was pure Hispanic. But he had tattoos bearing his hood. That was a blood gang. I don't remember exactly where he's from, but he was a blood, for sure. And when he hit the yard, he came onto the yard through the gate with all of his property. And you can really just see the yard almost stop. And everyone stopped and started staring at him. You can tell something was off. You can tell immediately that this dude was rocking with the blacks or whatever. Though you could also tell from the get-go that he was clearly Hispanic. The Southsiders approached him. "What's up, home? Where you from?" And he aggressively said, "Hey, I'm not your homie. I'm not a homes, whatever. I'm not Southside, bro. I'm whoop-de-whoop from whoop-de. I'm a blood." But he said it aggressively. And many people will argue that you have to say this aggressively. If you are of a certain race, but you are claiming the gang of a different race, and that race that you are from originally, your ethnicity, they approach you, and say, "What's up, man? Where you from?" or whatever. You have to be strong in your response. You have to own it. You have to wear it. If this is what you are, this is what you're representing, you're not with them, you have to let that be known. You have to draw that line immediately. You cannot straddle the fence. You also have to be careful. This is not the county jail. And the Southsiders here, well, really, they're not going to tolerate any sort of disrespect, really, from anyone, and particularly from their own people who is acting like he is not one of them. He is not one of their people. They already take umbrage to the fact that he has hit the yard and he is riding with the blacks. He is a blood. But if they were willing to let it go, that was out of the window. When they approached him, again, asked him where he was from, is he with them or whatever, however they approached, and he aggressively said, "Man, basically don't get at me no more. Letting y'all know now, I'm a blood." "Oh, okay." You know what I'm saying? The Southsiders basically said, "Okay, all right," and walked off. And as they're walking off, you can see they're talking and they're doing whatever. And their homeboys are on their side of the yard. All of the Southsiders on their side, in their area, in their section. It's all segregated in there, as I've said before. They're over there on their side. The blacks are playing basketball on the court. They're everywhere on the yard as well. But in our own areas, in our own sections, scattered out throughout the yard in our areas. The Southsiders go over there and they start meeting up really rapidly. They did not waste time in their conversing and clearly going over this. And apparently decided to disperse and continue the conversations later, not out in the open, to go back inside of the buildings and communicate with one another. And clearly they had made a decision rather quickly that this individual, this Mexican blood, this Hispanic Peru, this Hispanic blood that just hit the yard and got at them aggressively, on top of being a Hispanic representing a black gang, had to go rather quickly, immediately. They were not going to tolerate him being on the yard even for one day. However, this dude is a blood. He's affiliated. He's a member. He's connected. And there's some strong bloods on the yard. There's some strong Crips on the yard. Some strong blacks on the yard. Again, individually, but together, we are not that strong because we are not together. Everyone knows and recognizes this. We're fractured. We are not a unit. There's no unison amongst us then, before then, or now. And people take advantage of that very fact. They conversed and decided this guy had to go. And essentially, the very next day, come out to the yard. And instead of the blacks being prepared with their eyes open, everyone has communicated with the whole yard in our own way, passing kites, etc., speaking in Swahili, what have you, to communicate the fact that there is now tension on the yard, extreme tension, that someone just hit the yard that is riding with the blacks. However, he is not black. That the Southsiders may indeed try to attack, and instead of the head honchos, the individuals tasked in charge with leading and directing, saying, be prepared, be on your toes, everyone arm themselves, or saying, let's attack them first because we know it's coming, or whatever, they're out there in the yard playing around as if nothing ever happened, as if this dude has not just hit the yard the day before. They're out there on the yard playing basketball, reminiscent of the riot that transpired, that I spoke about in High Desert State Prison between the blacks and the whites. When the whites attacked, the blacks were out there on the yard, severely outnumbering the whites. However, they were playing basketball, playing cards at the tables, playing dominoes, working out, shooting the breeze, instead of being prepared and structured and organized and people on point and having security on them, etc. Same thing was happening right here on the yard in Lancaster. The dude that hit the yard the day before, apparently no one got the memo that they don't want him here on the yard. That this is a potentially dangerous and volatile situation. They're carrying on as if it's programmed as usual and programmed as normal. Playing basketball, as I said, dominoes, playing cards, some people over here working out, etc. They still had weights on the yard at this time. No, actually, they had just took the weights from Lancaster. They had just took the weights out. They still had the weight pile right there with the gate still around it. They had just took the weights out, though. But everybody's out there on the yard. And there's some mumblings. Some blacks, of course, are paying attention, especially the Bloods. They know what's going on, that this dude just hit the yard, and that he got at them aggressively. The Southsiders are not saying anything. They're not coming to the blacks saying, man, this dude got to get off the yard, or he disrespected us. We don't want to, they're not giving the blacks a chance to take care of it, to handle it. So the blacks are in the blind. They shouldn't be in the blind. I'm not making any excuses. They should not be in the blind. This dude hit the yard. He's a Hispanic. That's a blood that's riding with the blacks. Automatically, everyone should know, potentially dangerous, volatile situation. Be prepared, be on your toes, and if you sense any tension, if you sense any hostility, be the first to attack. Go on the offensive. Nevertheless, yard is going on, and within 20 minutes of being on the yard or so, the Southsiders, they attacked. They attacked the blacks that were scattered around on the basketball court. Now remember, it's only 3 buildings on one side of the yard and 2 buildings on another side of the yard. So everyone is not all out there together. The gate is separating them. So it's, the numbers are not that off. But the numbers are somewhat off because for the most part, the blacks are not prepared. However, the Southsiders attack, and they immediately attack the Hispanic, that's the blood. They get on him quickly. He was a target. I know how these targets work. I've been a target of the Southsiders. I know how it works. He was a target. And not only was he a target, someone else who they felt like was a threat on the yard. They targeted him. You know this, you can see this, because 3 or 4 of them got on this individual, 3 or 4 of them got on the Hispanic blood. They wanted him, they was trying to unalive this individual. They wanted to send a message: you cannot hit one of these yards and be our people and be riding with them. Now, this has also happened on the black side as well. I'll get into that at some point, because this is just the mindset of people for the most part. I don't care what they say when you are of one race, but you're claiming the gang of another race. The only thing that ended up making the riot somewhat salvageable for the blacks, where they just didn't lose a lot of face because they were getting attacked, they were ill prepared, just like in Pelican Bay, just like in High Desert. Don't hate me. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just telling you what the fuck is going on these damn prison yards. Too busy fighting each other. Too busy hating each other. Too busy stabbing each other to be organized with each other against other people who want to do us harm. And the only thing that saved it somewhat was when the Southsiders are attacking, a couple of blacks ended up running. They ran because they were ill prepared. Some blacks had knives on the yard just naturally, prepared to use them on another black. But they had knives on the yard, not for the Southsiders. They didn't even think anything was about to kick off, even though they know that this individual just hit the fucking yard. They too busy on the yard smoking Snoop Dogg and playing basketball. No one's really paying attention. But some of them were armed because, again, some strong individuals are here on the yard at this time. So when a couple of the blacks ran, you can say that it was strategic on their part. I think they just ran. But they ran, and a couple of Southsiders chased them. And when the blacks were running, of course they're running to where the crowd of blacks are at. They're running to their own people. They're running to safety. You're not trying to run into a crowd of Southsiders who are out here wielding knives and trying to take your head off. You're trying to get somewhere where your people at, with some people that got your back at. So they run into the crowd where it's more of a crowd of blacks at. And when they ran over there, the Southsiders, they left their people, who, their bigger crowd is over here. And so when they're chasing them with knives, they left their people. The blacks, there's some blacks over there with knives. They came out and they started hitting the 2 Southsiders that were chasing the blacks. And they got them on the ground. They got the 2 Southsiders on the ground that had been chasing the blacks because they got them away from their group now. And so they going to work on them. There's a lot of stabbing going on out here. But the Southsiders, they got the Hispanic dude, that's the blood. They got him over there on the ground, and he's bleeding bad. You see blood all over his shirt, blood all over his face. He's leaking. The Southsiders also have blood on their shirt and their face. The ones that was just chasing the 2 blacks, because the blacks are over there going to work on them. But they got a couple of blacks over there as well, the Southsiders do, and they're going to work on him. And they're going to work on them, particularly the one that they were after, the target, and the other one that they felt like was a threat. They were able to get him away from the crowd immediately. They waited to attack when he was not by the black crowd because he was a target. It was all strategic on their part. And basically, no one is getting down. As far as the police, get down, stop. They shooting the stuff on the yard. They're not shooting the real guns yet. They're just shooting the mace. They got block guns and mace. They use other measures first before they come out with the guns, depending on the situation. And right now, they're not shooting down on the yard with the rifles. They're just shooting the gas down there, the mace, and shooting the block guns, hitting people. So no one is still getting down yet. It got to a situation where basically it was a trade-off, where the blacks are saying, let him go, let the dude from Peru go, and then we'll let them go. It's like they had him, the dude, or the blood, I don't know if it was Peru with the blood, they had him as hostage over there stabbing the shit out of him, bro. He went from brown to red. He had blood everywhere, stabbing him up. But the more they're stabbing him up, the more the blacks are getting angry. They got the Southsiders away from their people, and they're getting on in. So the Southsiders start coming, they're rushing forward a little bit to come and save their people. And we got a chance to go in there and try to save Pyru now as well. And so basically when they're getting closer, the blacks are getting closer, the blacks are just saying, let them, tell your people stop, get up off of them, and we'll let them go. Because this shit is over by now anyway, about to get out. But it's over. Police run onto the yard from these other yards, the alarm that went off, there's gas all in the yard, everybody been hit with the block gun, people stabbed up, bloody, tired, breathing hard, running, laid out, everything. It's over. We've been out here going at it for a minute now. So just saying, before y'all try to finish him off, because it's about to be over, let him go, and we'll let them go. And they got up off of him, and the blacks got up off of the Southsiders, and that was it. Everybody laid down, and it was nasty. It was absolutely bloody out there on the yard. There was blood everywhere, on the basketball court and such. And the blacks, again, yes, were slipping at first, but they were able to recover and redeem themselves, if I'm being honest. Really, because the Southsiders ran over there, really broke ranks, lost their connection, lost their group, and was isolated, and that really evened the odds right there. Before that happened, it wasn't looking good for the home team. But the blacks recovered, responded quickly, strongly for people who were obviously not prepared, but still, it should have never happened, should have been prepared with something like that. When they come on the yard and you're from another race, you can almost count on something going down, particularly on a level 4 prison yard. This was bloody, and many people did get hurt in this riot right here. People got hurt. People got stabbed up badly. It was blood out there. This was a bloody, gruesome riot right here. You have to be careful. You have to be safe. You have to be free, man. Stay free, people.